You meet someone, and within a week, it feels like you've known them forever. They notice everything about you. They remember the small things. They make you feel like the most interesting person in the room. And then, slowly, something shifts. The compliments turn into comparisons. The attention turns into silence, and somehow, without ever raising their voice, they make you feel like the problem is you. If that sounds familiar, you're not imagining it. There's a name for what's happening, and once you understand it, you start seeing it everywhere in friendships, in families, in workplaces, not just romance. Psychologists generally split narcissism into two types. And almost nobody outside of psychology talks about the second one. The first type is grandiose narcissism. This is the version most people picture instantly: confident, charming, the center of every room. Grandiose narcissists love attention, and they're good at getting it. They tell big stories about themselves, they take credit easily, and criticism rolls off them like it never happened, or it explodes into rage, depending on the moment. Psychologist Heinz Kohut, one of the first to study narcissism deeply, described this as a kind of armor. Underneath the confidence is a self that needs constant outside validation just to feel real. The bragging isn't really about ego. It's about survival. In real life, this type is often the most popular person in the group chat, the one whose stories always somehow top yours. They might be the colleague who presents your idea to the boss as their own, smiling the entire time, completely convinced they earned it. Confront them, and you won't get an apology, you'll get a counterattack, or a long explanation about why you misunderstood. The second type is quieter and far easier to miss. It's called vulnerable narcissism. Researcher Aaron Pincus, who helped develop one of the main tools used to measure this trait, found that vulnerable narcissists don't look confident at all. They often look hurt, sensitive, even humble. But scratch the surface, and the same core belief is there. The same sense that they deserve more than they're getting. The same difficulty truly stepping into someone else's perspective. It just gets expressed through sulking instead of bragging, through guilt instead of grandeur. In real life, this type is the friend who never quite recovers from being left out of plans, even plans that were never personal. They're the partner who goes quiet for days after a small disagreement, until you find yourself apologizing just to end the silence. Even when you're not sure what you did wrong, their pain feels enormous and constant, and somehow it always becomes the center of the room too, just through a different door. Here's a question worth sitting with. Have you ever met someone who seemed almost too sensitive to ever hurt anyone, and somehow you still ended up apologizing to them constantly? That's often what vulnerable narcissism looks like from the inside of a relationship. So what does this actually look like in real life before anyone has a label for it? In the beginning, it can feel incredible. This is sometimes called idealization. You get showered with attention. They tell you that you're different from everyone else they've ever met. They mirror your interests, your humor, your taste in music almost perfectly. It feels less like meeting a person and more like finding your other half. That intensity isn't an accident. It's part of the pattern. Psychoanalyst Otto Kernberg used the term narcissistic supply to describe the steady stream of admiration and attention these dynamics run on. In the early stage, you become the most generous, easiest source of that supply they've ever found, and they reward you for it richly. Slowly, the focus shifts. Small criticisms appear. Your friends get described as a bad influence. Your past relationships get reframed as evidence that you have poor judgment. You start adjusting yourself, just a little, to avoid the look on their face when they're disappointed. This phase is often called devaluation, and it rarely arrives all at once. It creeps in through tiny comments, repeated often enough that they start to feel like truth, a joke about your weight, a sigh when you mention an old friend, a comment that you're too emotional, said often enough that you start believing it before you even open your mouth. You might start asking yourself questions you never used to ask. Am I too sensitive? Am I remembering this wrong? Did I really say that? Or is that not actually what happened? This confusion has a name too. It's often described as a slow erosion of your own sense of reality, and many people who have lived through it Describe the exhaustion of constantly checking their own
You might
memory
find yourself
against someone
keeping
else's
mental
version of
notes,
events, almost like evidence, just to trust your own version of a conversation that happened an hour ago. What's happening around these relationships, even to outside observers, tends to follow a pattern. Friends notice you've gotten quieter. Family notices you check your phone before saying anything, as if bracing for a reaction. You start narrating your own life in your head before you say it out loud, editing yourself in advance. At work, colleagues near a grandiose narcissist often describe a similar feeling, walking into meetings already rehearsing how to phrase disagreement, so it doesn't sound like disagreement at all. There's a reason for this. Living near unpredictable approval and disapproval keeps your nervous system on alert even when nothing dramatic is happening in the moment. Psychologists sometimes compare this kind of relationship dynamic to operating in a state of low-grade vigilance, similar to what's seen in people navigating other unpredictable high-stress environments. Your body doesn't fully relax, even during the good days, because it's learned that good days don't last, and it can't predict when they'll end. So why does anyone stay? This is the part people judge the most and understand the least. It's rarely about weakness. It's about the unpredictability itself. When approval comes and goes without warning, the brain doesn't get bored of chasing it. It gets more hooked. The uncertainty is the engine. You start working harder for the version of them you met in the beginning, convinced that version is still in there somewhere, just out of reach. Every small return of warmth, a compliment, a good morning text, an apology that almost sounds sincere, resets the whole hope cycle from the start. This is sometimes followed by a final phase, often called discard, where the relationship ends abruptly, without real explanation, sometimes followed by someone new who gets the exact same idealization treatment you once did. From the outside, it can look almost identical to the beginning of your own story, which is part of what makes it so disorienting to watch. Or, instead of a clean ending, you get something messier, a slow cycle of pulling away and coming back, apology and relapse, just enough warmth to keep hope alive. Friends might describe this as you leaving for real this time, only to watch the cycle restart a few weeks later. It's rarely a lack of willpower. It's a relationship literally designed, even unintentionally, to be hard to leave. Here's the part that tends to surprise people the most. Many people with strong narcissistic traits aren't aware they're doing any of this. They're not running a calculated plan. They're often reacting, moment to moment, to an internal sense of threat that the rest of us don't carry around at the same intensity. Criticism doesn't feel like feedback to them. It feels like an attack on their entire sense of being okay. So they respond the way anyone responds to a threat. Defensively, sometimes cruelly, sometimes by disappearing entirely. That doesn't make the impact on you any smaller. Understanding the mechanism isn't the same as excusing the damage. Knowing why a storm forms doesn't make you any less soaked once you've been standing in it. If you've recognized parts of this in your own life, the most useful thing you can do isn't trying to fix the dynamic from the inside. It's stepping far enough outside it to see the pattern clearly, the way you're seeing it right now. Patterns lose some of their power the moment you can name them. The idealizing, the devaluing, the confusion, the hook of hope, none of it feels random anymore once you can see the shape of the whole cycle, instead of just the moment you're standing in. You meet someone, and within a week, it feels like you've known them forever. Maybe now, looking back, you can see that the feeling wasn't really about how well they knew you. It was about how well they knew exactly what you needed to hear, and exactly when you needed to hear it. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss future videos. See you in the next one.